Are cell phones good or bad? What an interesting topic that I came across the other day. Actually watching a few YouTube videos recently about just what they call dumb phones, which are phones that are essentially just not smart. So like you have your flip phones in there, mostly flip phones, and then you have these phones that are like kind of made in China, or they seem to be made in China, like Chinese brands that resemble a dumb phone, but they're actually still kind of a smartphone. Like they still have a touch screen and everything. And there's a small niche of people who are actually going to these phones and trying to kind of get rid of their cell phone or their smartphone. And I think that's such an interesting idea. And today I just kind of want to talk more about, are cell phones good? I got to stop saying cell phones. Are smartphones good or bad? And kind of what are the reasons for both, right? And so I talked a little bit in an earlier video more about cell phones in general, and how social media kind of plays into them. I didn't get into the nitty gritty about whether smartphones are good or bad, and honestly, I guess I'll start with the good of smartphones, because I don't think they're all bad and I don't think they're all good. I'm kind of in the middle personally. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm 28, and so I did not grow up with smartphones. I remember I was in high school when the iPhone 3G came out. My first phone was a slide. It was like one of those slide phones that were actually really cool. The keyboard underneath that you would text on. But one of my buddies in high school had the iPhone 3G. And I thought that was like, man, I don't really see a point in that. I was like, I have an iPod Touch that can do anything I want it to do. And of course, clearly I was wrong. The next couple of years, the iPhone 4, the 4G, I guess, the 5G. And I think the 5 kind of revolutionized the iPhone into the market. And of course, the rest is history there. But with that has come, every year a new iPhone, or really the progression of technology inside of smartphones. And the good that I want to talk about, because I was thinking about this the other day and earlier, if I were to give up my smartphone, would I be able to use a dumb phone? And it's not necessarily a question of would I be able to do it, it's maybe more of a question of, does it make sense? Because a lot of the apps that I have on my iPhone are very crucial to my everyday. Just to name a few, Spotify, I love listening to music going to and from work, or even when I'm at work, just listening to music. Banking, my maps for navigation. I use navigation a lot. I guess everybody does, right? Because unless you want to print out directions, which that's a whole nother topic, going off of that, and how people, I don't even know how people got around back in the 80s, 90s, even before. Like that would have been insane to have to try and read a map in the car. But navigation, online banking, I don't think I said that yet, just emails, and then social media, of course, YouTube, social media, fantasy football. My fantasy football league's on there whenever that's in season. And then, of course, I'm in a fantasy baseball league. And so that's on my phone as well. And texting, of course, being able to call, like the basic features of a smartphone, right? Those are all things that I use on a day-to-day basis, and I wouldn't consider any of those bad. These are things I need to access just for ease of my life. The only things I would maybe consider to not be as necessary, of course, is probably like social media, which I covered in a previous video. But there's so many good things with cell phones, just the ease of communication. You have essentially the world at your fingertips. You can Google anything within probably about 30 seconds. Anything that you could ever want to know is at your fingertips, which I would consider that to be pretty good overall. I can't really complain. And so there's a lot of good with smartphones and a lot of things that I can't necessarily give up. Like I could, but it would be more of a pain. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, could I get rid of my iPhone and go to a different smartphone? Or like, what would my life look like without my iPhone? And well, I didn't really come to a conclusion, um, because I guess my life would be harder. In this age of technology, we can't really just get rid of all our technology to make our lives easier because everything we do is online. Like I said, just from a basic standpoint, like online banking, like just checking my bank, credit cards. I pay my credit cards on apps, and I check balances. I get text messages whenever one of my credit cards is used, for example, which is really helpful in case of any fraud. And so not having that really makes my life a little bit harder. And so I could probably go on and make a whole video on the good of smartphones, but I think kind of everybody's in the agreement for the most part. Like, smartphones are good, and there's a reason why everybody has one. And I think like 60% of Americans have an iPhone, specifically. So going to the bad side, I want to cover the bad side real quick here too. I guess the bad side of smartphones is if we don't use them correctly, or if we're not disciplined, I think they really take over our lives. And in a way, I already believe that they take over our lives because we're always on them, whether it's you're doom scrolling, which I would consider bad, to maybe paying your credit card, which I would consider to be very good. You should definitely do that. But the ease of doing that is convenient. And so with convenience comes what I would say is maybe a lack of intentionality. And let me go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to the 1970s, right? So no phones, obviously no computers. When you had to get in contact with somebody, you picked up your landline in your house, if you had one, which I'm sure most people did, and you had to call your friend. If you wanted to make plans, you had to sit there and call somebody. Or, the really old-fashioned way was just to go knock on their door. Right? You drive over to their house, you knock on their door, see if they're home. And that was kind of the only way of getting in touch with people in a timely manner. And I think we lose a little bit of that human connection, especially with the basics of phones, which is texting and calling. Texting specifically, you can make plans so quickly, which is great, which is really convenient. But I think you lose a little bit of that intentionality. Think about the last time you showed up at somebody's house unannounced, right? You probably haven't done that in the longest time. Like I used to do that as a kid when I wanted to see if one of my friends could hang out. I would ride my bike over to their house and ring their doorbell. And there was something like, I don't know, weirdly, I don't want to say magical. It wasn't like magical, but like, it was cool. It was like, I'm going to go ride my bike and see if they're around. And nowadays it's like you send a text and you wait. And it's a little bit less intentional. And while it's not necessarily a bad thing, I think we lose that human connection of relationships when it comes to like actually seeing somebody face to face, actually making a point in hanging out with somebody, or actually picking up the phone and calling somebody. Because I think nowadays we just don't talk to each other enough. We're not picking up the phone and calling people, and I'm really bad about this. So don't take this video as me saying I've got that figured out, because I definitely don't. But nowadays with texting, it's so much easier just to send somebody a text, and it's convenient, and that's great. But I think as we go forward with technology and the future of phones keeps progressing, I don't think there's any way to avoid using a smartphone, or you will probably lack a lot of your day-to-day convenience, which is super important unless you want to spend 2 hours of your day getting on your computer and doing all your, banking, check fantasy, pay credit cards, do this, do that each and every day. Especially with directions, navigation, that would be impossible. So as we go forward with technology, I don't think cell phones are bad, or smartphones. I think they're actually really good to a certain degree, but I think it is helpful to be mindful of what we're doing on our cell phones and our smartphones, and maybe using a little bit of self-discipline, not letting them control our lives. But since we are, of course, much more intelligent beings, from a certain standpoint, right, we are technically in control of our phones. And so that is kind of my goal. One of my many goals for 2025 is to be in control of the things that used to control me, and ultimately just continue to find the clarity in just our everyday chaos. And so, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Leave a comment, talking about either the good of smartphones, things you love, or maybe the things you'd like to change about your smartphones, or things that you wish didn't control you as much as they do. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.